The Tour Championships is a competition for only the top 8 most successful players of the season, which meant we saw a lot of world-class shots. But who had the best shot of the entire tournament? To find out, I'm going to be attempting to recreate all the best shots as accurately as possible and then play them in the fewest possible attempts. But we're beginning with Kyren Wilson, who ran Shaun Murphy really close in the final by consistently pulling off incredible shots like this one. Even though the frame was already over, Shaun was still playing on for snookers, and this is the way that Kyren found to get himself over the line in this frame. Although it's just a good pot, it's at a really awkward angle, and the fact that you have to play at the length of the table means you have to be really accurate with it. I usually find it's easy to hit these shots too thick, and that's probably why I kept overcompensating. Overall though, I was really happy to get it after just 5 attempts, even though I did lose the cue ball a little bit. Mark Selby next with what I see as one of the best snooker escapes of the year. Not only did he manage to land this up to the red, absolutely touching, but he also got it on his first attempt, something we don't always see in these compilations. And also something you're probably not going to see right now, although I was close on my first attempt and only stopped from hitting it by the jaw of the pocket. The main difficulty with this shot is there isn't very much room to get to the side cushion between the blue and the pocket, so I was using right hand side to try and widen the angle, but I kept hitting the blue or getting a little bit close to the corner pocket. I thought I'd miss my 4th attempt, but it just seemed to roll into the red just enough, and when I checked it was touching. Not only does Shaun Murphy manage to pop this ball down the cushion with ease, he's also able to avoid what looks like a certain in-off in the middle pocket by really getting into the cue ball. What impressed me with this one was the way that Shaun just got down and played it like it was over the corner pocket, when in fact it was actually a really difficult shot. Even on the shots where I struck it too thick, it was still a struggle to avoid the middle pocket, and the fact that it was so close to the side cushion in the first place meant you had to be really accurate with this one. This was such a tough shot, I didn't think I was ever going to get it right, so in the end I was just relieved it actually went in. Mark Selby manages to generate a lot of backspin on the cue ball on the next shot to force a way out for the blue. He needed to get the spin perfect here to find the correct path. Because if you hit it too hard, like I realised on my first attempt, the cue ball doesn't have time to spin back up the table. So after this I realised I had to slow the pace down a little bit, but this brought the other problem of getting it back far enough. This meant you had to spin it rather than power it back up the table, and it took me a few attempts to get it right, but when I did I realised my table wasn't quite fast enough for this to work. I nearly got top side of the blue, but I didn't have enough cue power. Shaun Murphy again, this time with a swerve to hit the brown that he also pots. Potting the brown is a bit of a fluke, but we're going to try it anyway because I think I'm going to be able to get it. Looking back now, it's easy to see I was a little bit overconfident with this one. The brown is in fact a lot thinner than I thought it was going to be, and also a lot further from the corner pocket. Although I keep missing the brown altogether here, because it's very thin, I'm not missing where I'm aiming for by very much, and I know if I just get a little tiny bit more on it, I'm going to catch the edge and pot it, and that happened on my 7th attempt, which was a bit quicker than I thought it would. Junhui's next with a really awkward shot where he's attempting to pot one red off another. This one's going to be really tough to get lined up absolutely perfectly to remove the black off the spot at the same time. This took a lot of setting up, and I was mostly just looking at trying to screw the cue ball into the black here, so the fact I got it on my first attempt was probably more luck than judgment. A crucial double for Kyren Wilson now as he's attempting to take a 7-5 lead in the final. This turned out to be a little bit harder than your regular straightforward double. To start off with, you have to avoid the double kiss on the red. To do this, I was using left hand side to keep the cue ball closer to the pocket and hopefully avoid the double kiss. But getting the angle right on a slightly thinner shot from the jaws of the pocket was what I was really struggling with here. And after playing it a few times, I realised it wasn't anywhere near as easy as I thought it would be when I first saw it, and it was in fact actually quite an attacking shot from Kyren rather than just a straightforward shot to nothing, which I got after just bumping the jaw. Next, Mark Selby plays a double of his own that's more just a traditional exhibition shot on the black. This is where you play the black ball around 4 cushions aiming for the corner pocket, and Mark managed to execute it perfectly. Now, I've played this shot quite a lot, so I was also trying to get it on my first attempt. To do this, you have to play the black around the table over the brown spot like this, which then only leaves the question which of these was the cheekiest double. Cue the music. But this one's fairly straightforward, as Mark's shot was a good exhibition shot that's difficult to execute, so earns him 3 chilies, whereas Kyren's shot was a really good double at a crucial time. Really difficult shot, and he didn't really have to play it, he could have just played safe. So I'm giving him 5 cheeky chilies, and he's this week's winner. Although the frame was already over, this long pot from Shaun was the killer blow in his semi-final against Mark Selby. This was a great end to a really close semi-final where Mark Selby had managed to come all the way back to 9-all, only to lose it in the deciding frame. The red only just goes past the pink with this one, so you have to be really accurate with it. Other than that, we're just trying to return the cue ball back up the table, but getting this in 2 attempts was a lot quicker than I expected, so I must have found the right angle. Ryan Day's next, and he's got this really awkward close range shot right in the middle of a 147 maximum break. Not only does he have to pot this red, he also has to find a way down onto the black. I lined this one up just off straight and was hoping to punch the cue ball into the cushion with left hand side to generate the angle. Unfortunately, on my first attempt it worked way too well and I came the wrong side of the pink. My second attempt was a lot better and actually got down roughly in the same place as Ryan did, possibly a little bit too far. We've got yet another Mark Selby shot coming up right after we find Link, who's in Albany, New York, which is there. This was another great safety shot from Mark as he manages to spin the cue ball around 3 cushions, landing perfectly in behind the yellow. And this is exactly the sort of shot I worry about because there's not much room between the bulk cushion and the yellow, so you have to get it absolutely perfect, and the shot takes quite a long time, so we could be here for quite a while. However, on my second attempt I noticed I got quite a good contact with roughly the right amount of side spin. I was praying for the cue ball to drop in behind the yellow here because if it didn't, I didn't know how long this was going to take me. Ding now has got to pot the black and somehow find a way to get to the last red on the top cushion. He'd been on the receiving end of Kyren Wilson playing out of his skin all day and had dropped 9-3 behind and was just trying to get another frame on the board, and he managed to do it with this brilliant shot. However, my first few attempts at this really weren't brilliant as I really struggled with this one. Even when I potted the black, I kept managing to catch the green or possibly even the brown. I should have got this a lot quicker, or at least get close to the red, in just a few attempts, but this actually took me way too long. However, when I finally got it right, I actually got the cue ball further around the table than Ding did, which probably means it's less accurate, but I was perfect on the red. Shaun Murphy now with a really accurate positional shot off the yellow to get him nicely on a red. He didn't have very much space at the other end of the table, but managed to land the cue ball on a pinhead, which meant he was nicely in position on the red above the black. Annoyingly with this one, I positioned the red to the left of the pack a little bit too close. It should be another ball length or so out. It doesn't make too much difference, however it's just not going to look quite as good when I finally get the cue ball in the right position. Either way, I was very close to getting the weight right, and there was a couple of shots where I just slightly overhit it or slightly underhit it. But my goal was to leave myself absolutely dead straight, which I got on my fourth attempt and would have been perfect if I positioned the reds right. Kyren Wilson is next, splitting the reds off the green. This came right after the double we saw earlier. Although it's worth pointing out, even though Kyren played a lot of good shots early on in this frame, he didn't end up winning it, and the fact that he lost it was one of the big turning points in the final. Saying that, it was still a good shot to get straight away here, and I could just about pot the red from the position I ended up in. Selby now manages to develop the last red off the blue, and this happens at a crucial time during his match against Ryan Day. He's able to clear up and win the frame from here, which ultimately gives him a commanding 9-5 lead in the match. And this one just needs a precise amount of left hand side. My first attempt wasn't really enough, so I put a little bit more on my second, and I managed to just about hit the red full enough to push it over the pocket, which I was pretty pleased with. After Kyren snookered in behind the black, Shaun Murphy looked completely out of the frame, but not only did he manage to hit this red, he also managed to get it completely safe and go on and win the frame himself. And this is yet another turning point in the final, because had Shaun have missed this, he'd almost certainly have gone on and lost the frame. I was playing this with a small amount of right hand side, but unfortunately I just kept getting a little tiny bit too close to the green. Eventually I found the right angle and hit the red, on the wrong side, but I still got it pretty safe. In fact, it was even a snooker. Ding gets a really nice pot now, the length of the table up into the yellow pocket. Again, this is just a really good pot with the frame already being over, but I've still got to get it and judge the pace across the table for the yellow. Although that being said, that part of the shot isn't really too difficult, it's all about the pot, which I was afraid was going to take quite a few attempts, but luckily enough I managed to get it on my third, which is probably quicker than I would have expected with this one. Another impressive shot from Shaun Murphy next, this time from tight on the top cushion. Of all the shots I played in this video, for some reason this is just the one I struggled with the most. Sometimes I find it difficult to get the right angle. On this one I probably was struggling to cue it straight with it being off the cushion, and I just wasn't quite cueing as straight as I was on some of the other shots earlier in the video. Either way, this was a massive shot in the context of the semi-final and managed to get Shaun his first frame on the board. To play it, all you need to do is power it in, but that was the thing I was struggling with the most. I was hitting it about as hard as I could, and the cue ball wasn't going anywhere near far enough. I wasn't sure I was ever going to get it, and even walked into the camera before one of the shots. I was just so relieved it went in the end, I didn't really mind that I didn't hit it hard enough. So for the results, third place goes to Shaun Murphy with his snooker escape. It made a big difference in the final, and if he'd missed it, he'd have gone 5-3 behind. Second place goes to Ryan Day as he manages to get on the black on this nearly straight red, right in the middle of a 147 maximum break. But the winning shot goes to Ding as he'd been completely played out of the game at this stage and managed to find a brilliant black around the table to get on the last red, and not only that, managed to pot it from a difficult position. So a surprising number of good shots out of this tournament, considering most years it's a struggle because there's only ever 7 matches. However, if you want to see me recreating shots from other tournaments, have a look at these 2 videos. And remember, don't just watch play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.